Hey everyone, I wanted to make a video today as a friendly reminder that if you are unhappy or if you feel stuck or if you feel like your life is meaningless or like you just can't do life like everyone else can, I just want to remind you that you can live a life that is actually like worth writing home about. You truly can. And I never felt like I could either. Like, truly, I never felt like I could. My whole life, my entire frame of memories, I felt ill-fitting in my life. Like, I didn't feel comfortable in my skin, in waking life, in consciousness. I just didn't feel like I didn't feel like I fit in my mind, like with my classmates. And that was my truly my entire life. And so it was really there was no other way other than the way it went down. And that's always the case. The way it went down is the way it had to go down. But it just made such sense that I was going through growing in early childhood internally with like this gaping hole of emptiness and not belonging. And so I tried to do all of the things within my small existence to kind of pass the time of my life, and to kind of bring a sense of fulfillment. And sometimes that was with long-term goals, like, getting a college education, or even just, at first graduating high school, getting a college education, like having a relationship. But really, I mean, it was with just in the moment too, to feel like, okay, this is like where I can fit in this waking life right now, and I can kind of exist and feel like I am like pantomiming, like play acting, being a human being with any degree of success. And the degree of success was the degree to which I could kind of like quit being so aware of myself, like from the outside, kind of get lost in the moment. But it was never in a true way. It was always just kind of like a mask, because it was temporary and it was like an oasis and fleeting. And that's what happens when we look outside of ourselves. And that's how we're taught to do. We are all, it seems like, taught to just be the way that the family structure that we're born into, and the like niche that we're born into, and the like area, and the church, and your school system, and your peers, and your friends. It's like we're not taught really to strive to be ourselves or to be better than our parents were, or we're just taught to like kind of keep up with the status quo and just do the same thing as everyone else, and just be like we're expected to be. And so if like your parents were really successful, you're expected to be really successful in a very similar way, if not identical way. And if your parents were the opposite, you're expected to kind of be the opposite and follow in their footsteps in whatever direction that you were born into. And it's like we're all exceedingly miserable. Like, so many of us are so unhappy. And I think it's because we don't really look at ourselves and look at life without these parameters and these definitions of like what we should want, and what we should be striving towards, and what we should be doing, and who we should be. We don't answer that question for ourselves. We let our circumstances answer it for us. And then when we do answer, it's so much of a non-answer for so long, that when we do, it's like a reaction, so it's like everything's bottled up and then it explodes. or then we become very reactive, with like anger or frustration, or, okay, well, you tell me to do this, so I'm going to do the opposite. But none of that is fulfilling because none of it's real. None of it's real. And I heard the other day on a video, it was just like, just basically saying, do you believe in your path? Do you have faith in where you are going? And it's like, wow, I do kind of believe in my path. And even just that idea seems like revolutionary to me. It feels revolutionary just to be like, wow, we can choose our path. To think about that, like we can choose where we are going. Like we can create our own destiny. It doesn't have to be just for celebrities or just for other people. We get to choose where we are going. We get to choose who we are. And when we stop like chasing all of these like markers of what we should be and who we should be, it becomes a lot easier and a lot less painful and frustrating to just like be ourselves and to really like answer that question. And unfortunately, I think for a lot of us, if we are lucky enough to get to that place, it takes so much more heartbreak and heartache and years, if not decades of time to then kind of answer the next question of like, okay, well, why am I still miserable? Why am I still being this person that I am not proud of? Why am I still letting myself down and not doing what I want to do? And I think it's because of everything I mentioned, like the expectations that we are born into of who we are supposed to be, and like the weight of that pressure of those parameters. It's like we are given a destiny when in every direction as far as the eye can see. It's like we are given a destiny of a definition of who we are. And we are not even supposed to dare to think to break out of it, to answer that for ourselves. And so then when we try to, and we begin to, and really try to like be ourselves and kind of take control over our life and do something different and change. And the first step to change is just to be like, wow, change is possible. Is this possible for me? Perhaps I can do something different and it'll actually make me happier. Maybe I can do that and maybe I deserve that. But like, that's a revolutionary act just to think that way. But don't get down on yourself when it takes a while, when it's like 2 steps forward and 3 steps back, because there is that conditioning, those layers of like, muscle memory within our heart's mind almost. Do you see what I'm saying? It's that conditioning and those parameters and that dogma and just all of the bullshit. We have to shed it like a snake. And that takes time and that can be painful because change is painful often. But maybe it doesn't have to be as painful as it seems. And just kind of acknowledging that makes it a little bit easier, I have found. To be like, first of all, nobody said this is going to be easy. Nobody said that. I mean, change is hard. It is difficult. I mean, growth is not comfortable, like ever. And so just to acknowledge that, it's like, okay, just because it's hard doesn't mean it, everything is hard. Staying the same is hard. Even when you're comfortable, even when you don't want to change, but you do, but you don't, and you stay where you're at, that is incredibly painful and incredibly difficult. And that's when you're stationary. So like, it's going to be hard. I mean, but everything is. And I think that is very helpful just to like acknowledge that, it's not supposed to be easy for me or anyone, and it's not. But maybe it is just as simple. And I've found it is just as simple as just constantly reinforcing to myself, being like a head cheerleader to myself and saying, hey, I can do whatever. I can surprise them all. I can do what I want to do on my terms in a way that is true to myself. And I can take that action. And I don't have to just be the way I've been because that is the way that I have been. I don't have to just be the way that I have been because that's the way everyone else in my life is. We can take our power back that way. And Cheryl Strayed, I heard a quote from her a couple days ago. She's one of the very few women from like the like that Oprah sphere who has not disappointed me. I still love her. I'm so grateful that she is like a person that we can like read her books and kind of soak up her wisdom. She's has this kind of like angelic potty mouthed way about her. She's like a potty mouth angel with her writing. It is almost spiritual, and she gives such phenomenal advice. And just like with her words, she captures the human condition in a way that's just like mesmerizing on the page and yet so relatable. And she said, forward is the direction of life. And I was thinking about that actually, like as a book title, not that exact quote, but I was thinking like a way, like 2 words, a way, ... forward, comma, away. So it's like, in other words, the way is onward and upward. Keep it moving. Don't give up. Don't go back. But forward is the way of life. That's it. That's it. And it is so tempting to go back because it's comfortable and because it's what we've already always known, and because it's the conditioning, of course. And also, this life, it's not supposed to be easy. If it was easy, there would be no growth. There would be no opportunity for growth. We would just live in like this utopia and everyone would know everything. And then how boring would that be? I mean, we would take everything for granted. How could we not take it for granted? So it had to be, kind of ghetto. I heard that Earth was a ghetto, like a ghetto planet. And I was like, believe it. Absolutely. That makes sense. But it has to be ghetto. It has to be like in the trenches, and it has to be like mucky, because you have to have that parallel and that contrast and that opportunity to choose. And, the choice isn't easy. It's simple, but it isn't easy. And that's like all of it, like once you choose differently, that's it. Our choice is everything. Our conscious choice, that's everything. That is God expressing God's self through us. That is life. That is the meaning of life. To consciously choose. That is like absolutely everything. And there's all these programs like for people that overeat, for addicts, for whatever type of addiction or vice or situation that you were stuck in. There were all these like programs and methodology and different ways of going about it. And like with eating, for example, or with hard drugs. It used to bother me, one of the addiction coaches that I had in the past, or like addiction counselors, she would always like food was her drug of choice. And so, that was her story. That's what she related to. And that's how she related to the content of being an addiction counselor, and she would always say addiction is addiction is addiction. And that used to make me mad because on one hand, people don't, kick down doors and pawn all their belongings and prostitute their bodies for like Twinkies. But so on one hand, there are different levels and there are different types of addiction. But on a deeper level, a more like philosophical soul level, it is addiction. It's all about having this like enhancement that feels real, this passion that substitutes love. It's like escapism at the cost of freedom, just so we can feel like we're going somewhere and we're doing something and we're getting away and we're getting our head above water as we like descend further into the depths. And so it's like, with addiction, you could go like NA or AA or rehab or, whatever. And with food, there's all different kinds of like exercises and ways to eat. And you could do, carnivore or veganism or everything in between, keto, whatever, intermittent fasting. But the thing is all these options are there. They're always there. They're always going to be there. There's always going to be a million different ways to do everything and anything. But the options don't matter until you make the choice that you can choose an option of doing something different right now than what you did yesterday. And every time you choose, it is just like, you have no idea the degree to which, like, you will expand and grow. Like, that's all a step forward. That's all a step in the right direction when you choose something different consciously. I made walnut, like vegan walnut, like meat. And I had this big bag of walnuts, and I was like, I'm going to make some vegan meat, with these walnuts. And I have had these bags for like 3 weeks. I got them from a food pantry, and nobody wanted these walnuts. I was there like at my job as an advocate. We had like a stand set up. It was a food pantry, and the walnuts were like left over. Nobody wanted these giant industrial bags of walnuts from God knows where. So I like took a bunch of them, and I've been putting off doing my vegan meat, and it's something I want to do. And why did I put it off? Because it was hard. Because I was like, I'm going to spend an evening like making, in the kitchen, making vegan meat in a heat wave. It didn't seem appealing. But you know what? When I actually did it, I felt so good about it. It was rewarding to spend that much time consciously making a meal, consciously making food, consciously like food prepping, and doing my meals for the week, and to follow through with that. It was so rewarding. And when I changed the perspective of, I need to do this before these walnuts like turn stale, when I like stopped looking at it like a chore and started looking at it like something like, yeah, I'm excited to try this, to do this thing, I ended up enjoying it and getting really into it. And it's delicious. And I felt so much better in a way that I could not have even like, imagined. And that's always the way it is, because it's just about fucking choosing. Like, we don't have to be what we have always been. We really don't, And it doesn't matter if you've been like 100 pounds, 200 pounds overweight for decades, or if you've been in addiction for decades, or maybe even like generations or your whole lineage. That doesn't have shit to do with you in this moment. You actually do have the power, the authority, the autonomy, and the opportunity to say, you know what, that's them. That was me. I'm going to do one thing right now in this moment to make a different decision, to move onward and upward. And when you do that, like everything expands, you know? And that is the direction of life. Y'all have a good night.